Please. I'm begging you. It's Christmas Eve. Nobody else will stop for me.
Her voice cracked, tears running down her face, standing alone in the snow next to a dead Chevrolet, shaking. And the only person who pulled over?
Ma'am.
A black mechanic.
You okay out here?
Nothing to his name. A man who couldn't even make rent this month. Fletcher stared at his phone. His little girl in a red dress.
Where are you, Daddy?
His one dinner. His one promise. His daughter waiting at the table. He looked at the woman, then back at his phone. Then he let out a long breath and said,
Pop the hood, I'll figure it out.
He missed Christmas dinner that night, fixed a stranger's car for free, and he had no idea that stranger was about to rewrite his entire life. But to understand what happened that night, you need to understand what Fletcher Shelton's life looked like before it. Because this man wasn't starting from zero. He was starting from below zero. Fletcher grew up in the foster care system in rural Georgia. No parents, no siblings, no one who had to love him. He bounced between 6 homes before he turned 14. Some were okay, some he doesn't talk about. By the time he was 18, the system was done with him, aged out, no safety net, no family waiting on the other side. Just a garbage bag of clothes and a bus ticket to nowhere. Most people in that situation, they fall through the cracks, and nobody even notices. But Fletcher didn't fall. He grabbed onto the only thing that made sense to him: engines. There was this old mechanic named Earl, ran a tiny repair shop on the edge of town, smelled like motor oil and black coffee every single day. Earl didn't advertise, didn't do social media. People just knew. If your car was broken and your wallet was empty, Earl would figure something out. Fletcher started showing up at Earl's shop when he was 16. Didn't ask for a job, just stood in the corner and watched, day after day. Eventually, Earl handed him a wrench and said, "If you're going to stand there, make yourself useful." That was it. That was the beginning. Earl taught Fletcher everything: how to listen to an engine, how to feel a misfire through your fingertips, how to talk to a car the way you'd talk to a stubborn friend, patient, calm, no rush. And more than that, Earl taught Fletcher what it looked like when a man showed up for other people without asking for anything back. Earl passed away 4 years ago, left Fletcher his toolbox, nothing else. But that toolbox meant more to Fletcher than anything anyone had ever given him. Now Fletcher was 38 years old, and this was his life. He woke up every morning at 5:45 in a studio apartment above a laundromat. The dryers hummed through the floor all night. The walls were thin. The space heater clicked every few minutes like it was counting down to something. The apartment was small, but it was clean. Fletcher kept it that way, the one thing he could control. On the fridge, held up by a magnet from a gas station, was a crayon drawing. His daughter Nola made it. A picture of a big blue van with a stick figure standing next to it. Above the van, in wobbly purple letters, Dad's Workshop. That drawing was the most expensive thing in the apartment, not in dollars, in meaning. Fletcher's van was a 2006 Ford E350. Dented, rusted around the wheel wells, 260,000 miles on the odometer. But the engine ran clean, because Fletcher treated that van like a surgeon treats their hands. It was his shop, his office, his livelihood. Everything he owned that mattered was inside it. On the side of the van, zip-tied to the panel, was a handmade sign: Shelton Mobile Repair. No logo, no website, no phone number on a fancy graphic, just block letters on a piece of sheet metal he'd cut and painted himself. That was Fletcher's business. One van, one man, one toolbox that used to belong to someone who believed in him. And every single day, he drove that van across town, fixing cars for people who couldn't afford to go to a real shop. Single mothers with dead batteries, old men with leaking radiators, college kids with check engine lights they'd been ignoring for 6 months. He never charged full price. Ever. Last Tuesday, he replaced an alternator for a woman with 3 kids in the back seat. The job was worth $120. He charged her $40. She thanked him 3 times. He waved it off and drove away. That's who Fletcher was. That was every single day. But kindness doesn't pay rent. Fletcher was $280 short this month. His landlord called. "You gonna have it by the 1st?" Fletcher said yes. His voice was steady. His hands weren't. Then a fleet company he'd been counting on, a contract that was supposed to carry him through January, called and canceled. No explanation, just, "We went another direction." Click. Fletcher sat in his van in a gas station parking lot, staring at the steering wheel, counting cash from a folded envelope, coming up short. Again. But here's the thing about Fletcher. He didn't stay down long. He never did. He picked up his phone and called his daughter. Nola was 9 years old. Big brown eyes, gap in her front teeth. Talked a mile a minute about everything, especially drawing. She was at her mother's house, already buzzing about Christmas. "Daddy, I made you a present, but you can't see it until tomorrow at Cousin Deacon's. You promise you're coming?" Fletcher smiled, the first real one all day. "I never miss it, baby girl, you know that." And he meant it, because Christmas dinner at Deacon's house was the one tradition Fletcher had, the only one. Deacon was his older cousin, the one person who stepped in when the system stepped out. Loud, loving, the kind of man who'd give you his last plate and act like he wasn't hungry. Missing that dinner wasn't an option. Not for Fletcher. Not ever. He hung up the phone, took a breath, and drove past a billboard on the highway. Big letters, clean design, a logo, a stylized A inside a wheel. Ashford Mobility Group, driving communities forward. Fletcher glanced at it for half a second, didn't think about it twice. He should have. What Fletcher didn't know was that the next 12 hours were going to ask him a question he couldn't answer with a wrench. Christmas Eve, late afternoon. The sky was already turning that heavy gray color, the kind that means the snow isn't coming. It's already here. Fletcher finished his last job early. A brake pad swap for an elderly man who paid him in cash and a Tupperware of sweet potato pie. Fletcher tried to refuse the pie. The old man wouldn't hear it. "Boy, take the pie. My wife made it. You say no to her, not me." Fletcher took the pie, put it on the passenger seat next to Nola's present, a sketchbook and a set of colored pencils, wrapped in newspaper because he couldn't afford real wrapping paper. He checked the time. 4:47 p.m. Deacon's house was about 90 minutes away. If he left now, he'd make it right on time. Nola would be there in her red dress. Deacon would be frying something. The house would smell like cinnamon and loud opinions. Fletcher pulled onto the highway and called Deacon. "I'm on my way. Save me a plate." Deacon laughed. "Boy, if you're late again, Nola's eating your mac and cheese. I'm not stopping her." "I won't be late." "That's what you said last year." "I mean it this time." Fletcher smiled, turned up the radio. Christmas music. He didn't usually listen to Christmas music, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. Then the snow got worse. Not a little worse. A lot worse. Visibility dropped fast. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up. Fletcher slowed down. Other cars were pulling off the road. The radio switched from music to a weather alert. Winter storm warning. Expect 6 to 8 inches overnight. Avoid unnecessary travel. Fletcher gripped the steering wheel. He wasn't turning around. Not tonight. He was on a 2-lane county road now, maybe 40 minutes from Deacon's. Dark trees on both sides, no streetlights, just headlights and snow and silence. And then, hazard lights, blinking orange through the white. A car on the shoulder. Not a new car, something old, something with curves. Fletcher slowed down. It was a 1972 Chevrolet Chevelle, burgundy. Beautiful, even under a layer of snow. The kind of car that makes you turn your head even when you're in a hurry. And standing beside it, arms wrapped around herself, no hat, no gloves, thin shoes, was a woman. Older, white, maybe early 60s, wearing a camel-colored wool coat that looked expensive but wasn't built for this kind of cold. She wasn't waving, wasn't frantic. She was just standing there, still, like she'd already accepted that nobody was coming. Fletcher almost drove past. He had every reason to. Nola was waiting. Deacon's mac and cheese was on the line. The storm was getting worse by the minute. And he was a black man on a dark road approaching a white woman alone. He knew how that could look. He knew how that could go. His foot stayed on the gas for about 3 seconds. Then he looked in the rearview mirror, saw her getting smaller, saw the snow piling on her shoulders. And he pulled over. He stepped out of the van. The wind hit him like a wall, cold so sharp it made his eyes water. He walked toward her slowly, kept his hands visible, spoke gently. "Ma'am, you okay out here?" She turned. Her eyes were red, not from crying, from cold. Her lips were almost blue. She'd been out here a while. The engine just stopped. Her voice was steady but thin, tired. "I called a tow truck. They said 2 hours. Minimum." She gave a small smile, the kind that's more exhaustion than anything else. "Christmas Eve." Fletcher looked at the car. Then he looked at his phone. A text from Nola. A selfie. Her and Deacon making silly faces at the kitchen table. Caption: "Hurry up, Daddy." His chest tightened. He looked at the woman again. Shivering, alone, standing next to a dead car on a road that nobody else was going to drive down tonight. 2 hours for a tow truck, in this cold. That wasn't inconvenient. That was dangerous. Fletcher walked back to his van. For a second, the woman's face fell. She thought he was leaving. But he came back with his toolbox. "Let me take a look. No promises, but I've seen a lot of engines." The woman stared at him. "You don't have to do this." Fletcher was already popping the hood. "I know." She reached into the passenger seat for something. A leather portfolio. Monogrammed. Gold letters on the front. C.A. She set it aside to make room. Fletcher didn't notice. He was already leaning into the engine. But here's what he did notice. She was shaking. Not just cold shaking. Deep shaking. The kind where your body is telling you it's running out of time. Fletcher stopped what he was doing, walked back to his van, came back with his jacket, a faded Carhartt worn at the elbows, the only warm layer he had. He held it out to her. She looked at it, then at him. Then she took it. And for the first time, her eyes softened, like something inside her shifted. "Thank you," she whispered. Fletcher nodded, turned back to the engine. And the temperature kept dropping. And this is where everything starts to shift. Not because of what Fletcher found under that hood, but because of what he was willing to lose. Fletcher leaned into the engine with a flashlight clenched between his teeth, snow landing on his neck, melting down his back. His fingers were already going stiff from the cold, but he kept moving, kept feeling, kept listening. He knew this engine. A 350 small block. Classic Chevy V8. He'd worked on dozens of them, mostly in driveways, mostly for guys who loved their old cars more than they'd ever admit. This engine was clean, well-maintained. Someone had taken care of this Chevelle for a long time. But right now, She was dead quiet. Fletcher traced the ignition system, checked the distributor, checked the coil. Then he found it. A failed ignition control module. And the wiring underneath? Corroded, green and brittle. The kind of damage that happens slowly over years until one cold night it finally gives up. He stood back, wiped his forehead with the back of his wrist. The fix wasn't complicated, but the part was rare. A 1972 ignition module isn't something you pick up at a gas station, and out here on this road, in this storm, there was no parts store open, no backup coming. Unless Fletcher walked back to his van, opened the rear doors, dug through his bins until he found it, a relay from his backup electrical kit. It wasn't a perfect match, but he could rig a bypass, bridge the connection, get the Chevelle running long enough to get the woman wherever she needed to go. But here's the catch. That relay was the only spare he had for his own van. The only one. If his van broke down after this, on this road, in this storm, with no tow truck for 2 hours, he'd be stranded. No heat, no help. Just him and the snow. He held the relay in his palm, looked at it, looked at the woman sitting in the Chevelle wrapped in his jacket, looked at the snow coming down harder. He didn't hesitate. He walked back to the Chevelle and got to work. The next 45 minutes were brutal. His knuckles scraped against cold metal, his fingers cramped. He couldn't feel his ears anymore. Snow piled on his shoulders, on his back, on the edge of the hood. Every few minutes he'd blow into his hands, flex his fingers, and go right back in. He talked to the engine the way Earl taught him. Quiet, calm, like coaxing a scared animal. Come on, sweetheart, work with me. I know you're tired. Me too. But we're not done yet. The woman, Catherine, watched him from inside the car. She hadn't said much since he started, but she was watching. Closely. The way he moved, the way he touched the engine, the way he didn't rush, didn't curse, didn't slam anything in frustration. She leaned forward. Do you do this a lot? Stop for strangers? Fletcher didn't look up. When I can. Most people wouldn't, not on a night like this. Fletcher paused for a second. Most people got somewhere warm to be. She caught what he meant. He didn't have somewhere warm. Not really. He had a cold apartment above a laundromat and a table at his cousin's house, and right now he was losing the only one that mattered. Catherine went quiet, but something in her expression changed, like she was filing him away in her mind, storing him somewhere important. Fletcher's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with greasy fingers. Deacon. Fletch, where are you, man? Nola's been asking every 5 minutes. Fletcher closed his eyes for a second. Got a little held up. I'll be there. Deacon's voice dropped, serious now. How held up? I'm helping somebody on the road. Car broke down. Silence. Then Deacon, soft, knowing. You and your big heart, man. Just get here when you can. I'll keep her plate warm. Fletcher hung up, went back to the engine, worked faster. Then another call. This one hit harder. Daddy? Nola's voice, small and sleepy. Hey, baby girl. Are you coming? Fletcher's jaw tightened. He could feel something building behind his eyes. He blinked hard, swallowed it down. I'm coming. I promise. Save me a seat, okay? Okay, Daddy. I saved you the big chair. That's my girl. He hung up, stood very still for about 5 seconds, snow falling on his face, eyes closed. Then he opened them, picked up the wrench, and kept going. The bypass was tricky. The wiring was old, and the connectors didn't want to grip in the cold. Fletcher stripped 2 wires with his teeth when his wire stripper slipped. He spliced them together, taped the connection, rigged the relay into place. It wasn't pretty, but it was solid. Earl would have called it ugly beautiful. The kind of fix that only works when someone really knows what they're doing. Fletcher stepped back, took a breath. "Try it now." Catherine turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, coughed again. Nothing. Fletcher leaned in, adjusted one connection, tightened a ground wire. One more time. She turned the key, and the Chevelle roared to life. That old V8 rumble, deep, heavy, alive, filled the silence of the road like a heartbeat coming back. The sound echoed off the trees. The exhaust poured white into the frozen air. Fletcher exhaled, long and slow. His breath hung in front of him like smoke. Catherine stepped out of the car. She stood there looking at him, not at the engine, at him. The way people look at someone who just did something they didn't expect, something they'll remember for a long time. "I don't know what to say." Fletcher wiped his hands on his jeans. "Don't need to say anything. Just get where you're going safe." She shook her head slowly. "What's your name?" "Fletcher. Fletcher Shelton." "I'm Catherine." No last name, just Catherine. She looked at the engine one more time, then back at him. "You have a gift, you know, the way you talk to engines. My husband used to do that." Past tense. Fletcher noticed, didn't push. "He had good taste in cars," Fletcher said, nodding at the Chevelle. Catherine's eyes glistened. She touched the hood lightly, like she was touching a memory. "It was his. This is the first Christmas I'm driving it alone." Silence. Just the engine rumbling and the snow falling, and two strangers standing on a dark road on Christmas Eve. Both carrying weight. Both alone in different ways. Catherine reached toward her leather portfolio on the seat. Her hand hovered over it, almost like she was about to pull something out. Then she stopped, adjusted the brooch on her coat instead. A brooch shaped like a steering wheel. Small, gold, pinned right over her heart. Fletcher noticed it. Didn't say anything. He didn't know what it meant. Not yet. She tried to pay him, and what he did next told her everything she needed to know. Catherine reached into the Chevelle, pulled out that leather portfolio, the one with the gold monogram, C.A. She unzipped it and took out a checkbook. Not a regular checkbook, the kind that comes in a leather case with a pen attached. "Please, let me pay you, whatever it costs. Name your price." Fletcher shook his head before she even finished the sentence. "Ma'am, Catherine, it's Christmas Eve. I'm not taking your money." "You've been out here for almost an hour, in the freezing cold. You gave me your jacket. You used your own part. At least let me—" "No, ma'am." He said it gentle, but firm. The kind of firm that doesn't leave room for negotiation. Catherine held the checkbook in the air for a moment, then slowly lowered it. She studied him. Really studied him. Not the way people look at someone they feel sorry for. The way people look at someone they're trying to understand. Like she'd been looking for something, and just found it. "Then at least let me have your number, in case I need a mechanic again." Fletcher hesitated. Then he walked to his van and came back with a small card, handwritten, slightly bent at the corner. Just his name, his phone number, and Shelton Mobile Repair in block letters. No email, no website, no fancy design, just the basics. She took it, held it with both hands, looked at it longer than a normal person would look at a business card. Then she tucked it into her portfolio, carefully, like it was something worth keeping. Fletcher waited for her to hand him something back, a card, a number, anything. But she didn't. She just zipped the portfolio shut and looked at him one more time. "Fletcher, get to your daughter, and Merry Christmas." He nodded. Merry Christmas, Catherine. She got in the Chevelle, closed the door. The engine was purring now, that deep V8 rumble steady and strong. She pulled onto the road, snow crunching under the tires. The taillights glowed red through the white, getting smaller and smaller. And then she was gone. Fletcher stood there for a moment, alone on the road. No jacket, freezing, hands raw, grease under every fingernail. His phone buzzed again, another text from Nola. He didn't check it. He just got in his van, turned the heat on, barely warm, and started driving. He got to Deacon's house 2 hours and 14 minutes late. The front door was unlocked. The house was warm. It smelled like ham and cinnamon, and the last hour of a long party winding down. Dishes stacked in the kitchen, foil over everything on the counter. The table had been cleared, but there, on the stove, was a plate, wrapped in foil, still warm. A sticky note on top in Deacon's handwriting. You owe me an explanation. Fletcher smiled, barely. He walked into the living room, and there was Nola, asleep on the couch in her red dress. Deacon's jacket draped over her like a blanket, her shoes still on, like she'd been trying to stay awake. Fletcher sat down beside her, gently. The couch creaked. He reached out and stroked her hair. Slow. Careful, the way you touch something precious. She stirred, eyes half open. Daddy? I'm here, baby girl. She smiled, that gap-toothed, sleepy, perfect smile. Then she reached under the couch cushion and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I made this for you. Don't look until I'm awake. Okay, never mind. Look now. Fletcher unfolded it, a crayon drawing. Him and Nola standing next to his van. Big yellow sun, green grass, and a banner across the top in purple, wobbly letters. Best mechanic in the world. Fletcher held that drawing in his hands, stared at it. Didn't say anything for a long time. The weight of the whole night landed on him right there. All of it. The cold, the sacrifice, the woman, the missed dinner, everything. Nola was already asleep again, head against his arm. Fletcher leaned back, closed his eyes, held the drawing against his chest. And somewhere out in the snow, Catherine Ashford was making a phone call. But here's the thing. Catherine didn't just drive home that night. She didn't just park the Chevelle and pour herself a glass of wine and forget about it. No. She made a phone call. And that phone call set something in motion that Fletcher couldn't possibly see coming. Catherine pulled into her daughter Grace's driveway around 9 p.m. The porch light was on. Before she even turned the engine off, Grace was at the door, robe on, arms crossed. That look on her face, the one daughters give their mothers when they've been worried sick. Mom, I called you 6 times. Catherine waved her off gently. The car broke down. I'm fine. A man stopped and fixed it. On Christmas Eve? In that storm? Who? Catherine didn't answer right away. She just walked inside, hugged her daughter, sat down at the table, ate dinner, smiled through the conversation, played with her grandkids. But later, after the dishes were done, after the kids were in bed, after Grace was wrapping last-minute presents in the living room, Catherine sat alone in the study. Door closed. She pulled out Fletcher's handwritten card, stared at it, ran her thumb across the block letters. Shelton Mobile Repair. Then she picked up her phone and dialed. Tom, I know it's Christmas. I'm sorry, but I need you to look into something for me first thing after the holiday. A mobile mechanic. His name is Fletcher Shelton. Tom Whitfield, VP of Operations at Ashford Mobility Group, paused on the other end. A mobile mechanic? Catherine, what? Just do it, Tom. Everything. His work, his reputation, his customers. I want to know who this man is. She hung up, looked at the card one more time, then placed it inside her portfolio, right next to a photo of her late husband Richard standing in front of his garage, 1969. Meanwhile, Fletcher's life went back to normal, or whatever normal was for him. Jobs trickled in. He paid rent. Barely. He replaced the relay he'd given away. $85 he didn't have. New Year's came and went. He didn't hear from Catherine. Didn't expect to. She was just another stranger on another cold night. That's what he told himself. But then things started happening. Small things. A fleet manager who'd ghosted him months ago suddenly called back. "Hey, somebody recommended you. Got a few vehicles need servicing." Then a parts supplier offered him a wholesale account, the kind usually reserved for established shops with storefronts and business licenses, not guys working out of vans. Fletcher was confused, but grateful. He didn't question it. He should have. And then, 6 weeks after Christmas, Fletcher Shelton got a phone call that made him pull his van to the side of the road. It was a Tuesday, February. Cold, but no snow. Fletcher was in a grocery store parking lot, flat on his back under a Honda Civic, replacing a water pump for a high school teacher who couldn't afford the dealership price. His hands were covered in coolant. His back ached. Just another Tuesday. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Unknown numbers were usually spam, or bill collectors. Neither one he wanted to hear from right now. But something made him pick up. "Mr. Shelton?" A man's voice. Professional. Careful. "Yeah, who's this?" "My name is Tom Whitfield. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Ashford Mobility Group." Fletcher went still. His wrench stopped moving. Ashford Mobility Group. That billboard. The one he drove past every day. The stylized A inside a wheel. Driving communities forward. The name he'd seen 100 times and never thought about once. "I'm sorry, what?" Tom continued. Measured, like he was reading from a script but trying to sound like he wasn't. "Ms. Ashford asked me to reach out to you directly. She'd like to set up a meeting." Fletcher slid out from under the Honda, sat up on the cold asphalt. The teacher was standing nearby, watching, confused. "Ms. Ashford? Catherine?" "That's correct." Fletcher's brain was doing math it couldn't solve. Catherine. The woman from Christmas Eve. The Chevelle. The snow. The checkbook he turned down. The business card he gave her. "I don't understand. What does Ashford Mobility Group want with me?" Tom paused. And in that pause, Fletcher felt the ground shift underneath him. "Mr. Shelton, I think it would be best if Miss Ashford explained that herself. But I can tell you this much. She was quite specific about reaching out to you. She told me what happened on Christmas Eve. The Chevelle. The storm. She said you used your own part to fix her husband's car and refused payment." Fletcher said nothing. "She also said you gave her your jacket." Still nothing. "Ms. Ashford doesn't reach out like this, Mr. Shelton. In 22 years, I've never seen her ask me to personally contact someone. So whatever happened that night, it made an impression." Fletcher leaned against his van. The grocery store parking lot suddenly felt very small. A woman was loading bags into her trunk 3 spaces away. A shopping cart rolled past in the wind. The world was going on like normal, but for Fletcher, normal just ended. "What exactly is Ashford Mobility Group?" Tom told him. And that's when Fletcher's legs almost gave out. Ashford Mobility Group, one of the largest automotive services companies in the entire Southeast, 14 states, over 200 service centers, dealerships, fleet contracts, parts distribution, a company valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars. founded by Richard Ashford, Catherine's late husband, in a garage, with one toolbox and one client. 1969. The same Richard who used to talk to engines, the same Chevelle that Fletcher fixed on the side of the road. Catherine wasn't just some woman whose car broke down. She was the CEO, the majority shareholder, the person sitting at the top of an empire built on the exact same thing Fletcher did every day: fixing cars and taking care of people. Fletcher stared at his hands. Grease under every nail, calluses on every knuckle. He looked at his van, the zip-tied sign, the dent in the bumper, the 260,000 miles on the dash. And he thought about that night. The snow, the cold, the relay he gave away, the jacket, the drawing from Nola, the dinner he missed. All because he stopped. "Mr. Shelton, are you still there?" Fletcher exhaled, long and slow. Yeah, I'm here. Ms. Ashford would like to meet with you, in person, at our headquarters in Atlanta. She asked me to tell you, and these are her words. Tell him I remember what he said, that most people got somewhere warm to be. Fletcher closed his eyes. He remembered saying that, standing in the snow, hands deep in an engine that wasn't his. When does she want to meet? Whenever you're available. She said there's no rush, but she also said, and again, her words, the sooner the better. I've been waiting 6 weeks and I'm not a patient woman. Fletcher almost laughed. Almost. Okay, tell her I'll be there. He hung up, stood in the parking lot for a long time. The teacher was still waiting, still confused. Everything okay, man? Fletcher looked at him, blinked, like he was waking up from something. Yeah, everything's fine. Let me finish your water pump. He slid back under the Honda, picked up his wrench, but his hands were shaking. Not from the cold this time. That night, Fletcher sat in his apartment above the laundromat, dryers humming below, space heater clicking, Nola's drawing on the fridge. He opened his laptop, an old one, cracked screen, slow as mud, and searched Ashford Mobility Group. The website loaded. That logo. The A inside the wheel. Photos of service centers. A fleet of branded vehicles. Press releases. Revenue numbers he couldn't even process. And on the About page, a photo of Catherine Ashford. Professional, poised, wearing a steering wheel brooch. The same brooch, the same woman, the same eyes that watched him fix an engine in the snow. Fletcher closed the laptop, leaned back in his chair, stared at the ceiling. What did you get yourself into, Fletch? The dryers hummed, the heater clicked, and somewhere in Atlanta, Catherine Ashford was waiting. But Catherine didn't bring Fletcher to Atlanta just to say thank you. She brought him there to make an offer that would terrify and transform him in equal measure. Fletcher made the drive on a Saturday morning. 3 hours. He wore his cleanest shirt, a navy blue button-down he usually saved for Nola's school events. Ironed it twice, still had a small crease on the collar that wouldn't cooperate. He wore his good jeans, his least scuffed boots. He even cleaned under his fingernails, though the grease stains wouldn't fully come out. They never did. He pulled into Atlanta and followed the GPS to Ashford Mobility Group headquarters, and when he saw it, his stomach dropped. Glass and steel, 4 stories, a parking lot full of cars that cost more than his apartment. The logo on the building, that stylized A inside a wheel, was enormous. Polished, catching the morning sun like it was made of light. Fletcher sat in his van for a full 3 minutes before he got out. He looked at the zip-tied sign on the side panel, Shelton Mobile Repair, block letters on sheet metal. Then he looked at the building in front of him. The distance between those two things felt like an ocean. He got out anyway. Inside, the lobby was quiet. Clean. The kind of clean that has a smell, like new leather and fresh coffee. A receptionist smiled at him.
Mr. Shelton? They're expecting you. 3rd floor.
They're expecting you. Like he was someone. Like his name was on a list somewhere. He took the elevator, straightened his collar, took a breath. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows, a long table, water glasses already poured, and at the far end, Catherine. She looked different, not the shivering woman from the roadside. She was poised, commanding, hair pulled back, a dark blazer. That steering wheel brooch pinned right where it always was, over her heart. But when she saw Fletcher walk in, her face changed, softened. She stood up and walked toward him, not a corporate walk, a real one.
Fletcher, thank you for coming.
She shook his hand with both of hers, held it for a second longer than business required. Then she introduced Tom Whitfield, firm handshake, measured grip. Tom's expression was harder to read, polite but cautious, like he wasn't fully sold yet on whatever this meeting was about. They sat down. Catherine folded her hands on the table, and then she said something that changed the air in the room.
My husband Richard started this company in a garage, 1969. 1 toolbox, 1 client. A Chevelle he rebuilt with his bare hands.
She paused.
He used to say, the most important thing about fixing a car isn't the part. It's the person holding the wrench.
She looked straight at Fletcher. I watched you that night, in the snow. You're the person he was talking about. Fletcher didn't move, didn't breathe for a second. Catherine opened a folder on the table, slid it across to him.
I didn't bring you here to say thank you, Fletcher. I brought you here because I have a proposal.
She laid it out, clear, specific, bigger than anything Fletcher had ever imagined. Ashford Mobility Group had been trying to expand into mobile and on-demand vehicle repair for 3 years. They'd studied the market, hired consultants, built projections, but every model they tried felt corporate, sterile. They couldn't replicate the thing that made independent mechanics like Fletcher work: trust, accessibility. Showing up in a parking lot and treating people like neighbors instead of invoice numbers. Catherine's proposal. A full operational partnership. Not a job, not a franchise. A partnership. The name, Shelton Mobile Fleet Services. Under the Ashford umbrella, but run by Fletcher. His name, his methods, his rules. The details. Startup capital for a fleet of fully equipped service vans. Access to Ashford's parts supply chain at cost. Training resources, marketing support, and a percentage of revenue that would grow as the operation scaled. Fletcher stared at the folder. Pages of numbers, projections, timelines. His name printed at the top of every page. I can't run a company, he said. Quiet, honest. I fix cars in parking lots. That's what I do. Catherine smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her since that night. Neither could Richard. Until he did. Tom leaned forward. Reluctantly, he slid a second folder across the table. Data. Fletcher's customer retention rate, 91%. His referral numbers. Online reviews from people who'd never left a review for anything else in their lives. A woman who wrote, Fletcher fixed my car when no one else would answer the phone. I trust him more than any shop in this city. Tom looked at Fletcher. The numbers speak for themselves, Mr. Shelton. Catherine leaned back. Take your time. I'm giving you a week to decide. No pressure. But I want you to know, this isn't charity. This is business. I'm offering this because you're the right person. Full stop. Fletcher drove home in silence. No radio, no music, just the road and his thoughts. He called Deacon, told him everything. Deacon went quiet for 10 full seconds, then yelled so loud Fletcher had to hold the phone away from his ear. "Boy! Boy! Are you serious right now?" Fletcher laughed. First real laugh in weeks. Then he called Nola. "Baby girl, Daddy might be starting something new." "Is it a bigger van?" "Maybe a whole lot of vans." "Can I put stickers on them?" "Every single one." That Sunday, Fletcher drove to the cemetery, found Earl's headstone. Simple gray stone. Just a name, 2 dates, and the words, "He showed up." Fletcher stood there a long time, hands in his pockets, wind blowing. "You always said the work would speak for itself, old man. I think somebody finally heard it." He pulled out his phone, dialed Catherine's number. "I'm in." And what happened next didn't just change Fletcher's life. It changed an entire community. The first 3 months were a blur. Fletcher signed the partnership agreement at Ashford headquarters. Catherine was there. Tom was there. A photographer took a picture of the handshake. Fletcher in his navy button-down, Catherine in her blazer, that brooch catching the light. But the moment that hit Fletcher hardest wasn't the signing. It was the keys. Catherine handed him a set of keys. Not to a van, to a building. A small commercial space in his hometown, right off the main road, 3 blocks from the laundromat where he used to live. It had a garage bay, an office, a waiting room with actual chairs. On the wall inside, a framed black and white photo of Richard Ashford standing in his garage. 1969. Young. Grinning. Toolbox at his feet. A Chevelle behind him. Next to that photo, an empty frame. Same size, same style. Catherine pointed at it. "Fill that frame, Fletcher." He did. Launch day. 5 service vans, clean, white, fully equipped, each one branded with the new logo. Shelton Mobile Fleet Services. A wrench inside a wheel. It echoed the Ashford logo, but it was distinctly his. Fletcher designed it himself on a napkin at Deacon's kitchen table, and the first 4 people he hired? Mechanics from his own neighborhood. People he knew. People who'd been in the exact same position he was a year ago. Talented, hard-working, invisible. Terrence. Spent 2 years trying to get hired at a chain shop. They never called back. Fletcher called him first. Dominique. Single mother of 2. Best diagnostic instinct Fletcher had ever seen. She could hear a misfire through a closed window. Ray. 61 years old. Retired. Bored out of his mind. Showed up on day 1 and said, "I heard you need someone who knows carburetors. I am that someone." And Keisha. 23. Just finished community college. No experience, no connections, but she reminded Fletcher of himself. Standing in Earl's shop, watching, waiting for someone to hand her a wrench. He handed her one. The community noticed, fast. Within 3 months, Shelton Mobile Fleet Services had more requests than they could handle. Word spread the old-fashioned way, not through ads, not through algorithms, through people telling other people. Call Fletcher's team. They'll show up. They'll be fair. They'll fix it right. Fletcher kept his promise. Written into the partnership agreement, non-negotiable, was a discounted rate structure for single parents, veterans, elderly customers, and anyone going through financial hardship. Tom Whitfield pushed back on it, said the margins didn't work. Fletcher didn't budge. Catherine sided with Fletcher. That was the end of the discussion. Then the news caught on. A local station ran a segment. From parking lot mechanic to automotive partner. Fletcher was uncomfortable on camera, kept looking off to the side, kept saying, "I'm just doing what I know." But Nola, standing right beside him in a yellow sundress, was not uncomfortable. She waved at the camera, smiled that gap-toothed smile. stole the entire interview. That story got picked up by 3 more stations, then an online outlet. Then a national automotive magazine ran a profile. The headline, "The Mechanic Who Stopped." But the thing Fletcher was most proud of, it wasn't the vans, it wasn't the building, it wasn't his name on a logo. It was the apprenticeship program. Fletcher started it 6 months after launch. The Shelton Youth Apprenticeship Program, specifically for foster youth aging out of the system. Kids just like he was, 18, alone, no safety net, no one waiting on the other side. He taught them the way Earl taught him, hands-on, patient, one engine at a time. No shortcuts, no yelling. Just show up, pay attention, and respect the work. First class. 6 students. By the end of the year, 4 were employed full-time. 1 went on to technical school with a full scholarship funded by Ashford Mobility Group. The 6th one? Still learning, still showing up. Fletcher told him the same thing Earl once told him. If you're gonna stand there, make yourself useful. Ashford's board, the executives who'd been skeptical from day one, finally looked at the numbers. Fletcher's division had the highest customer satisfaction scores in the entire company. 94%. Higher than any dealership. Higher than any service center. Higher than divisions that had been running for decades. Catherine presented those results at the annual shareholder meeting. She read one customer review out loud. From a woman whose car Fletcher's team fixed for free during a family emergency. "They didn't just fix my car, they fixed my week." Catherine looked at the room. "That's the company my husband built, and that's the man who's carrying it forward." But there's one more thing, and honestly, this is the part that got me. 1 year later, Christmas Eve, same county road, snow falling. Soft this time. Not a storm, just a quiet, steady white. The kind of snow that makes everything feel still, like the whole world is holding its breath. Fletcher was driving home from the shop. Not the van this time. A company truck. Clean, warm, the Shelton logo on the door. But the same man behind the wheel. Same hands, same heart. Nola was in the passenger seat, asleep. Sketchbook open in her lap. A half-finished drawing of a Christmas tree with about 40 ornaments on it. She'd been drawing the whole ride. They were heading to Deacon's, on time this year. The mac and cheese was safe. Nobody was eating his plate. And then, hazard lights, blinking orange through the falling snow. A car on the shoulder, and standing next to it, a young man, early 20s, hoodie, no coat, hands shoved in his pockets, stamping his feet against the cold, looking up and down the road like he'd already given up on anyone stopping. Fletcher slowed down. He didn't even think about it. His foot moved to the brake the same way his lungs moved to breathe. Automatic. Built in. The way Earl built it into him. The way life built it into him. He pulled over, got out, walked toward the young man. "You okay? Need some help?" The young man's face flooded with relief. "Man, I didn't think anyone was gonna stop. I've been out here 20 minutes. Fletcher looked at the car, popped the hood, flashlight out, hands already moving. Loose battery cable, corroded terminal, 2-minute fix. Fletcher cleaned the connection, tightened the clamp, and closed the hood. "Try it now." The engine started. First turn. The young man reached for his wallet. "Let me give you something, man, please." Fletcher shook his head. "Just get where you're going safe." The young man stared at him, then nodded, smiled, drove away into the snow. Fletcher stood there for a moment, watching the taillights disappear. Same road, same snow, same feeling. Nola's voice from the truck, sleepy, soft. "Daddy, you stopped again?" Fletcher climbed back in, hands cold, heart full. Always, baby girl. He drove to Deacon's. The table was full. The house was loud. The mac and cheese was perfect. Fletcher sat between Nola and Deacon. Nola leaned into his arm. Deacon raised a glass. To the man who never drives past. Fletcher raised his glass, said nothing. Didn't need to. On the table beside his plate, a Christmas card. Cream-colored envelope, elegant handwriting. To Fletcher, the person holding the wrench. Merry Christmas. Catherine, tucked behind the card, a check, made out to the Fletcher Shelton Youth Apprenticeship Fund. Deacon glanced at the number, choked on his eggnog. Fletcher just smiled, folded the card, slipped it into his shirt pocket, right over his heart. Same spot where Catherine always wore her brooch. And that's the story. A man with nothing who gave everything. A stranger who turned out to be the door he never knew was waiting for him. A Christmas Eve that rewrote a life. But here's what stays with me.
Here's the thing. Fletcher had no idea who that woman was. None. He just saw somebody freezing on the side of the road, and he pulled over. That's it. And you know what I keep coming back to? He passed away and left the man with 2 bucks. That's all he had. But he gave him something way bigger. He showed him what it looked like when you just shop for people. No agenda, no angle. And that's what Fletcher did that night. Gave away his only spare part, mistreatment with his little girl, for a complete stranger. Catherine, she spent her whole life with a man who built an empire, doing the exact same thing. She knew what she was looking at. Sometimes, the thing that changed the whole life doesn't look like an opportunity. It looks like a broken down car on a dark road. And the only thing that gets you there is being the kind of person who stops when everybody else keeps driving. So real talk, when the last time you stop for a total stranger, when it's actually cost you something, tell me in the comment. Would you have pulled over that night? If the one hit you, send it to somebody who needs it. Hit subscribe. We do this every week. You don't need an empire.